Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final day of Digital Investment Summit at Malaysia Tech Month 2020. My name is Sean, and I'll be your host for the day. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome all here this morning. And I'd like to thank all of you here in attendance for taking your time off to join us today, as well as those who have been us since yesterday. Now, the Digital Investment Summit aims at elevating Malaysia as a premier digital tech and services hub and the heart of digital ASEAN. This fully virtual event will feature a series of live webinars, tech and talent ecosystem, and locations showcase. The event is targeting regional and global decision makers, senior business leaders, and CXOs of digital tech and services companies, startups, investors, corporates, and international communities looking for opportunities in Malaysia and ASEAN. Digital Investment Summit at MTM 2020 will be exhibiting Malaysia as a fertile ground for investments and the epitome of a digital home. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we move on, allow me to convey some housekeeping guidelines. Any questions from the audience may be submitted via the Q&A comment box. Meeting and chat rooms are also available for your networking convenience. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be moving forward to our first session today, and it will begin shortly. Click Join Session. And so, the topic for our first panel session today will be Springboard to Digital ASEAN: How Smart Collaboration Unlocks Exponential Growth. And with this, we will have Mr. Muhammad Azmi Zulkifli, Chief Executive Officer of InvestKL, as our session moderator, and he will introduce the panelists of the session. Mr. Azmi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sean. Assalamualaikum and good morning. Day 5 of the Malaysia Tech Month 2020. I have the pleasure here today to be moderating the session Springboard to Digital ASEAN: How Smart Collaboration Unlocks Exponential Growth. Today, I'm pleased to share this platform with the three speakers here: Dato IR Muhammad Karim Abdullah, Group Chief Executive Officer of Serba Dinamik Holdings Berhad; Dr. Jasmine Begum, Director Legal, Corporate and Government Affairs, Microsoft ASEAN and New Markets; and Mr. Chee Siong, Vice President, Malaysia Cloud and AI Business Group, Huawei Technologies Malaysia. Let me take the pleasure of running through the speaker's profile here today. Dr. IR Muhammad Karim Abdullah, the Group Chief Executive Officer of Serba Dinamik Holdings Berhad. Dato Karim is a mechanical engineer turned entrepreneur with more than 30 years of experience in engineering services for oil and gas, power, water, utilities, and IT solutions. He serves as the Group CEO and Managing Director for Serba Dinamik since 1993 and leads the group of companies to be listed on the main board of Bursa Malaysia in February 2017. He helms the group of companies from an unknown SME to almost a 6 billion ringgit market cap today and in excess of 15 billion in order book. During this time, Dato Karim has actively engaged as a speaker at various private and government events, including international conferences on futuristic technologies, Industry Revolution 4.0, effective leadership, winning management style, entrepreneurial journey, economic and industry views from his perspective, educational and financial wisdom, as well as his secret corporate maneuvering during choppy economic periods. Under his stellar leadership, Serba Dinamik is today present in 24 countries across 6 continents. Dato Karim is the chairman of Kumpulan Powernet Berhad Sarawak, Consolidated Industries Berhad, and Beyond PLC. He is the chairman of Institute Materials Malaysia, IMM, and the CEO faculty of Polytechnic Kuching. Dato Dr. IR Karim has also received many awards and recognitions for his achievements. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jasmine Begum, the Director for Legal, Corporate and Government Affairs, Microsoft ASEAN and New Markets. Dr. Jasmine Begum is based in Kuala Lumpur and has held this role since 2010. where she oversees corporate affairs, government relations, and policy engagement, as well as philanthropies for Microsoft businesses in the ASEAN region. Jasmine joined Microsoft with over 20 years of award-winning experience that uniquely straddles both legal policy engagement and communications. That included leadership and regional stints at companies such as Dell Malaysia, the United Nations Development Programme, the United Nations Executive Office of the Secretary General in New York, as well as having been a corporate litigator. Jasmine has broad educational qualifications, having completed a double degree in law at the International Islamic University in Kuala Lumpur. Jasmine then pursued postgraduate studies in both law and communications in the UK and earned her PhD in business and human rights. The last panelist I'd like to introduce is Mr. Lim Chee Siong, the Vice President of Malaysia Cloud and AI Business Group of Huawei Technologies Malaysia Sdn Bhd. With more than 20 years experience in the ICT industry, he possesses broad experience in the digital and ICT industry development strategy and technology, business solutions, sales and marketing. He is currently responsible for Huawei Malaysia Cloud and AI Business Group, covering Huawei Cloud, intelligent computing, AI portfolio, data storage, and intelligent vision solutions. His mission is to support customers and partners to identify and develop the right cloud and AI transformation solutions and ecosystem. To build a fully connected, intelligent world, he previously held the position of Chief Strategy Marketing Officer for the Southern Pacific region. So with that, I welcome all three of the panel speakers. Going on to the topic of the day, it's about Springboard in Digital ASEAN, collaboration and growth. And this is more so important as the three of our key panelists here today are experienced in business and more so with what we are going through under the current pandemic situation. I'd like to start off the session by asking a question to all three panelists, perhaps starting with Dato Karim. How can your organization look at opportunities or create value in ASEAN under the current circumstances of the economic situation?
Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity. Thank you very much to the organizer and of course to the chairperson today, Mr. Azmi. As regards to the questions, I am of the belief that time has changed a lot of situation and things, how people manage their daily activities. And as we speak today, we can see a lot of frontier technology that comes in. And all this frontier technology is very much towards what we call it as improving the efficiency of how people do the thing. And the end results is to produce a higher productivity. So on this matter, if we look at it, frontier technology is what the chairperson has mentioned just now. It varies from organization to organization, and it varies from country to country in terms of how the infrastructure and also the skills of the human resource that have been developed. So among other things, I strongly believe that internet connectivity will be one of the very important one because without this connectivity, information cannot pass through, message could not be delivered. So it is something which is very important. And to have this connectivity, that is where the infrastructure need to be built up. So I would say that that will be one of the areas of prior importance. And of course, other than that, later on will comes in the other added frontier system, ecosystem, and so on, such as artificial intelligence, and then the things like the cloud computing, and other things that is dealing with day-to-day life will be the fintech technology that need to come in to smoothen the transactions of deals related to financial aspect. So I think I will leave it as that for the time being, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Dato Karim, for the insights. Quite to capture a gist of it, it's a combination of the soft skills as well as the hardware with an ecosystem that is supportive of the current situation today. Let me move on to Dr. Jasmine from Microsoft. Microsoft would be no stranger to collaborations as well as digital initiatives. What would the opportunities be then from your perspective, looking at the growth here in ASEAN? Can you please unmute, Dr. Jasmine?
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute and participate in this dialogue. Azmi, thank you for the question. And I think that the role that different MNCs and organizations play in making sure the collaboration with the local partners would be to, in fact, collaborate more closely and enable and empower them. And one of the biggest area that we see is that the pandemic has presented us an opportunity to rethink how we collaborate, how we actually work with local partners to reskill, cross-skill, and upskill, which has become one of the most critical component that we realized. Apart from ensuring that collaboration happens, it is also critical that we work to make sure that the workforce becomes digital by design. A digital workforce works differently and it is on demand. And as we looked at countries around the region going into lockdown, partial lockdowns, and working from home becomes the new normal on what moving forward will be never normal, it becomes important how we understand that this collaboration is anchored on ensuring that the workforce becomes a digital workforce by design and it becomes a national agenda, and how we look at an opportunity skill, reskill, and upskill. And most importantly, organizations like us have an opportunity to engage closely to also not only look at the bigger enterprises, but also look and see how SMEs could also be enabled. I think we want to look at that. The most critical layer here would be the SME layer, the MSMEs and the SMEs, and this partnership becomes even more critical as we announced globally that we look to skill 25 million people in the world. In Malaysia, we've also made a commitment. This is one of the most critical components in this collaboration, working closely, ensuring that digital workforce now become not only a national agenda, but also a regional agenda. Thank you, Jasmine.
Certainly a very interesting insight from Dr. Jasmine. I'd like to pick up from the word rethinking collaboration, reskilling, upskilling, as well as cross-skilling. That's critically important today as how we adapt into the new normal and looking at how we can better manage our businesses as we go ahead from that perspective. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Jasmine. Chee Siong, I'd like to also explore this activity with you with regards to the role as well as how Huawei sees the collaboration as well as opportunities moving forward in ASEAN.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Chee Siong, so it's my great honor to join this panel discussion. So in response to Mr. Chairman's question, closer collaboration between the private, public, and the social is becoming more and more important, especially when we are undergoing the current pandemic. So the pandemic has moved us to a new norm that require much closer collaboration. So in this area, from Huawei perspective, we're trying to contribute in two aspects. The first is to contribute in terms of advanced technology and solution that to help our customer and partners for the digital transformation as much as possible. So the technologies that we want to bring to the ASEAN countries, including the 5G technologies, that's already happened in many of the countries in ASEAN, and then also the cloud technologies that is very useful during these pandemic seasons, especially for the SME. And the third one will be the AI transformation. As we are living in a new norm, so the AI technologies that could be very efficient and helpful for the factory, for the businesses, and also for all the retails. So that will avoid and to reduce probably the human context in many of the scenario. So the three advanced technologies of 5G, cloud, and AI, I think is something that Huawei would like to contribute and bring to the ASEAN region. And with that, it definitely required a much closer collaboration among the government, private, as well as the social levels in order for these three technologies to be applied to the business and the social. So second aspect that I think is very important that I fully agree with what Dr. Jasmine has mentioned, it is a reskilling and upskilling. So a talent development, especially during this pandemic period. So we need to reskill and upskill when we restart our new norm of working and life. So this is why in the beginning of this year, Huawei has launched a Huawei ASEAN Academy, and that require a strong collaboration with the government in many of the countries, including Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, and Indonesia. So our target is to train up to 10,000 of new talents in 5 years. So when we say new talents, so those talents that need to be reskilled and upskilled to be equipped with all the latest knowledge and technologies. And we hope that more talents could be well-versed with 5G, well-versed with cloud and the AI, because these are talents that we definitely needed for the digital transformation of the industry. So I think that is the two areas that Huawei wish to contribute, and of course, and also we think that that is the two major important areas that a much closer collaboration is definitely required. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chee Siong, for those sharings. A clear theme I could see from the three speakers is about collaboration, and it's not just probably the more conventional collaboration. Moving forward, it's a public-private collaboration, looking at their activities as we move up on the value chain. Also, it's important to note from the comments of the three panel speakers just now about the need to upskill, as well as I think within the same agenda about creating jobs. And that's probably some of the activities that we would want to focus on as a way forward. Moving on, I'd like to again pose a question to Dato Karim. What makes Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia as an attractive digital hub for expanding in ASEAN or in any part of the world for that matter?
Mr. Azmi, thank you for the questions. I strongly believe that Malaysia posed to be a very good location, and it also has the necessary infrastructure. And thirdly, it also has the necessary competitiveness to attract foreign investment to come in. For example, like this particular sessions, I would say it is very useful because it's opened up the connectivity with all the relevant parties, and it is head spear by MDEC. And I would say that MDEC being the entity that has contributed a lot, not only domestic in Malaysia, but of course in the regional operations, and of course also connecting it to the global market. So we do have institutions like MDEC, which can play this role and direct the interested parties who wants to come into Malaysia to collaborate and also to channel it to the assistance that will be required. And I will say that Malaysia is not so far behind in terms of the skills of the technicalities related to all this frontier technology. We can see that in a lot of forums and discussions and expo and so on, we see a lot of local expertise who portray and demonstrates their capability and ability. And again, if we go into MDEC, there will be a pool of local entities who has actually registered their expertise and capabilities to connect it to the outside world. And of course, I would say that if we compare among all the countries in this region, in terms of the remunerations of the skills of the locals in Malaysia, I would say that it is still competitive in such a way that it provides a platform of affordability to foreign entity who wants in to tap onto the local expert. I also would like to share my own experience as what Mr. Azmi has mentioned. We are operating in 24 countries, 6 regions globally. And through my personal conversations and interactions and so on, Malaysia workforce is being quite recognized globally. And of course, the education system is also another aspect which a lot of other countries put a respect to Malaysia. As we know, we are implementing the United Kingdom education system mostly, but of course, there are also other institutions who tap onto the American system, the Australian system, but very much so, the fundamentals of the education system is still channel or the directions is towards the UK education system. And of course, everybody globally will recognize and agree that the UK education system is still one of the top in the entire world. So from all those aspects, I strongly believe that combined together with the entrepreneur that exists over in Malaysia, it will pose Malaysia to be a very potential country to offer and also to open up investment to foreign entity. So again, as an organizations like Serba Dinamik, which I am representing, we are putting a lot of efforts in strengthening our own internal capability. Serba Dinamik has also acquired UNIMAI, University Malaysia of Computer Science and Engineering, which one of the core competency and the boutique recognitions of these institutions is onto the computer science. And of course, one of the key area which it wants to champion is on the cyber security aspect of it. So as the organizations of Serba Dinamik, which is more as a practical contractor entity, we are injecting what we call it as the practical industrial requirements into the university, so that the university will roll out the practical R&D, not so much an R&D just to serve, to fulfill the theoretical aspect of the academic, but it is rolling out a practical R&D aspect which will serve the actual needs of the industry. So I think from this aspect, we are pretty anxious to have this kind of directions, so that the upskilling things that we have been talking about just now can become much more reality in terms of the practicality aspect of it. So I ended that for the time being, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Dato' Karim. With all the activities and expansion that we are seeing with Serba Dinamik, probably it's not too modest to say that you are becoming from a local champion into the next global champion for Malaysia. And with all the factors that you mentioned, that's where we see a good combination of collaboration. As an example, credit must also go to MDEC as driving the digital economy initiative for the country. And this is important as we drive forward as a country, and with Serba Dinamik focusing on some of the activities at hand. So very interesting, and thank you, Dr. Karim, for your comments. Dr. Jasmine, from Microsoft's perspective, it is a very well-known brand present in practically all countries. what would make then Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, an attractive digital hub for expansion in ASEAN or even beyond the region?
So certainly Microsoft has been in Malaysia for almost coming to 30 years. And I think Dato Karim clearly outlined talent as an important component to this. And I think that is well acknowledged. Our digital infrastructure is one that has matured very well, and we continue to progress on investing in the digital infrastructure. We have been one area I think we want to call out, Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur for that matter, and as a country, the idea of the multimedia super corridor that was mooted out of Malaysia was critical to position Malaysia in the forefront of then emerging technology and today leading edge technology. I think that gave us a bit of a lead in positioning Malaysia, attracting all of those investments into the country, moving from what was then known as a manufacturing hub into becoming today a digital first economic hub. Malaysia has this ambition of having 20% of the GDP to be contributed by a digital economy. And I think that ambition has positioned Malaysia very well. I think Malaysia continues to progress in the policy front, which is critical to ensure that we attract the right investment, the high-end jobs. And that is an area that I think, especially with the curve of technology progressing so fast, Malaysia continues to be competitive to attract. ASEAN as a region has become a hub to attract these investments. Every country today is competing to attract these investment, foreign direct investment. And I think Malaysia has continued to be progressive, has continued to position itself as a thought leader in the technological front. And I think what I see as an opportunity for Malaysia is certainly to further accelerate the adoption of some of these leading edge technology policies so that we would be able to bring in some of these leading edge technologies like quantum computing and some of those that are just emerging so quickly. I think Malaysia is well positioned. We have the right size of country. We have really good digital infrastructure. We have the people, we have the talent. Policy continues to progress. I think it is a gamut of things and not just one. And I think as Malaysia has led some of these initiatives, I think we can just continuously look at how we can progress and continue to look at not only the fact that we are consumers of technology, but we also increasingly become producers of technology. And certainly Serba Dinamik is one good example for that. And MDEC has played such a critical role in positioning Malaysia as that producer of technology. And that is made possible also by the fact that we allow companies like Microsoft and Huawei to provide the platform so that innovation can happen on top of these platforms. And I think that is also something that is critical to recognize. And I think the fact that we have had this entrepreneurial and innovation culture, Malaysia further becomes comes into a position of becoming that Silicon Valley of the East. Only because we have all of these different components coming into place. And I think that is an important area that we need to recognize, but also one that we cannot stop. We need to continuously progress on that. And one of the biggest area we can be competitive is actually in progressing some of those policy positions that Malaysia continues to take. Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you, Dr. Jasmine, for your comments. Certainly a big thank you to Microsoft as well for investing in Malaysia for the past 30 years. More so in investing in people and talent. And that's important there. I'd like to pick up from the point when you're saying about the target of reaching 20% of GDP in the digital economy. That's also very important to say that Malaysia with 32, 33 million population, yearly graduates of about 350,000 graduates, which means it's more of moving up the value chain instead of the activities in manufacturing, where we are also looking abreast at what we can do in advanced manufacturing activities. And to tie this all up together, certainly the initiative by the government, Industry 4.0, that was launched 2 years ago, that will also applicable well to Microsoft or even Huawei and the technology providers that are key in this perspective. And certainly China has also been a leading nation in automation, robotics, and AI. So which leads me to Siong. From that perspective then, how do you see that collaboration and what makes Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia an attractive digital hub for your expansion in the region?
Yep, certainly. So, I mean, to the facts that Huawei is already putting Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, as our Asia Pacific headquarters. So, to Huawei, we are already putting Malaysia as the heart of our ASEAN market. So, and the reason why we choose Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, I mean, myself as a Malaysian, I worked in Huawei for 18 years. So, I'm very proud of it. And I mean, I would consider that I myself is also one of the talents that have been trained for the past 18 years. So, so I think for Malaysia that we're having that multicultural, multi-religions, multi-language advantage and very unique environments that position Malaysia as a very unique market competitiveness. And that especially applied to 3 areas. So the first one would be the talents that everyone has been discussed just now. So being as the talents, I mean, even during this pandemic periods, Huawei Malaysia still hiring 300 new staff from the universities during this from March until now. So that shows that even we are facing with great challenge during the pandemic, but talent is still very important. So throughout this period of time, we're still hiring 300 students from the universities. And that students is not only serving Huawei Malaysia, I would say probably 30% is serving Malaysia market, 70% are actually on board to other countries. So we are actually hiring from Malaysia for the region and even for the world. So there are a lot of Huawei Malaysian staff that are working in Russia, Latin America, and many of them actually in Europe. So I think that is the one of the important value and also the competitiveness of from Malaysian market. The talent itself is the first. So secondly is about Malaysia could be well becoming a technology innovation hub, especially to address industry 4.0 evolution. Because Malaysia, we have one of the strongest in terms of oil and gas industry and the manufacturing. So oil and gas, I think, as Serba Dinamik as one of the key solution providers in these industries. So how can we apply all the advanced technology of 5G, cloud, AI into this so-called all the legacy and mainstream industry of oil and gas? So Malaysia, we may not be the innovator of the core technologies of 5Gs. The advanced technology is still mainly R&D coming from China, US, Europe. But how to apply this core technology into the industry? So to apply technologies into the industry and application, this is where Malaysia can excel. This is where like Serba Dinamik as an important solution provider in the oil and gas industry to adopt 5G, cloud, AI, IoT technology, and to transform the oil and gas industry to be more competitive. So that technology to be applied into the industry, and this is where the solution can be innovated in Malaysia through the leading players of Petronas, Serba Dinamik, for examples. And another industry is manufacturing. We have two local branded car manufacturers in Malaysia. So we have Proton, we have Proto. I think with that capacity, we are one of the leading in the ASEAN countries. And we have top growth, many of the hand glove manufacturer, which is we are also leading. So when it comes to manufacturing capacity, competitiveness, we are leading already in the ASEAN. But how can we further utilize the advanced technology of 5G, cloud, and AI, IoT into these manufacturing sectors and to increase the efficiency and to really transform and to increase all the competitiveness of our product coming from the manufacturing sectors. So that, again, how to apply advanced technology into the industry. And that will lead us innovation. And when we lead in that segment, then Malaysia company can become a consultant to other countries. So we can export that solution, knowledge, and talents to the other countries. So I think from an as an innovation hub, Malaysia are very well positioning because we have the capacity, we have that large size of the industry and company that we can innovate, adopt technologies into the application. And then lastly, Malaysia is also very well positioned to play as an ecosystem hub. For examples of being a leading position in the Islamic fintech, Islamic logistic, Islamic e-commerce. So these are Malaysia very unique leading positions. And we are already leading in this area, but there are much more room to play that we are leading not only in ASEAN, I believe will be in the world. And there are many other things that we could play to form an ecosystem, industry ecosystem that is start from Malaysia. So this is why we always think that Malaysia has a very good positioning to play as a talent hub, the technology innovation hub, as well as the ecosystem hub. So this is why to Huawei we put here headquarters here in Asia Pacific, and we are continuous to recruiting talents. We wish to work closely together with industry players like Serba Dinamik to really innovate and apply the advanced technology into the industry. And those are the points I would like to share, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chee Siong. Very good points there. Certainly, you sound very patriotic as well. Huawei is most importantly not just a handphone, which is what people may know more, but it's about 5G, cloud, and AI. And I am particularly intrigued when you say that you are exporting talent. Personally, from me, thank you to Huawei for doing this, because we are seeing many other companies doing so as well. And Malaysians are carrying our flag and doing very well across the world from that perspective. So putting all those activities together in ecosystem, manufacturing as well as services, a lot of opportunities as we move forward from a digital perspective. So thank you for that insights with regards to that. Going on or moving on to the next round, this is probably starting back with Dato Karim. What will your advice be for other organizations in them forming a collaboration to grow their footprint in ASEAN?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that number one, it goes back into the inner self of respective person and organizations of the level of confidence that they have. Generally, I would say that Asian people or Malaysian, generally in reference to, has what they call it a certain level of inferior complex. What I'm trying to say here is they are of the opinion and of the view that people from Europe, people from United States of America, people from United Kingdom, they are much, much more superior as compared to we people in Malaysia or people from Asia. So with that, it actually hinder the first step of motivations to move out of Malaysia, or to move out as a global player to offer our service and capabilities to other countries. So I would like to always share the examples of what is actually going on across the entire globe. History has shown to us that after the World War II, when the Japanese has surrendered and has more or less suffer from the atomic bomb that has been dropped onto Nagasaki. But the collapse of the infrastructure and also their reputations, they wake up again because of the unity of the people. They wake up again because of the belief of the people. And one of the beliefs that they believe in is they adopted the philosophy and also the concept and the implementation of quality in a lot of their manufacturing activities. So when this component or this element of quality is being implemented, the products that end up and being exported out of the country is more superior as compared to country that does not adopt the concept of quality. And from there, we see that Japan become one of the world economy. At one time, is the second largest economy in the world before China took over. So again, what I'm trying to say here is the Japan as a country and the Japanese as the people there, they are not European, they are not Americans, they are not United Kingdom. They are also the Asian people. So meaning to say that the success of the recognitions of what a respective country can be positioned does not refer to where you come from, but it goes back to the products and the end results that you can prove and show it to the world. Again, I would say that China is the same thing. Known to be a country during the very early days could not produce quality products. But because of the perseverance and the determinations of the people of China, we can see how China evolved itself from that situation and position to what it is today. To certain statistics is showing that it's one of the largest economy in the world and is one of the country that has the most sophisticated technology, especially when people refer to 5G technology. So all these are evidence that are in front of us to show that it does not matter where you come from, but it actually goes back to your inner self and your own motivations of how you want to make yourself to be recognized in your country and also outside of the world. So I think this experience is also shared within our organization in such a way that I need to be very frank that we are having difficulty to a certain extent in convincing our own country people of our own in-house product and capability, because they are saying that local products are not as superior as foreign products. So fair enough, we are not taken back by all these remarks and so on. We move ourselves out of Malaysia, we entered into a lot of countries. And of course, I think as of today, there are a few countries that lended us with sizable kind of contracts, and we are working hard to prove ourselves and also to bring our Malaysian flag to those respective countries. And I would say that there are a lot of other opportunities in other parts of the world. So in conclusion, I would like to say that it goes back to ourselves, sit down, analyze, and make a pledge within ourselves and also within our organization. Be united and move out with a level of confidence and tell the world what you can offer much better value added as compared to your competitor. So I think that is what I would like to share in relevant to the question that you have raised out, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Dato Karim. Certainly a very good advice for us all. Dr. Jasmine, from your perspective then, what would the advice be for organizations in forming collaborations to grow their footprint in ASEAN?
I believe that innovation is not static, it is dynamic. And being innovative means, to Dato Karim's point, being brave, being bold, and not just thinking out of the box or taking that first step. I think as a culture, we are not ready to fail fast and build on that. Our culture builds only on, I need to be, only success is celebrated. But failure allows you also build to the next step. And I think that is something that we have seen, the ability to have the growth mindset, to learn and continue to learn. And those are elements that are very important, because if you stop learning, you will stop innovating, and there won't be progress. I think as you look to, as companies want to work with MNCs, everyone wants to get to the front. Everyone wants to progress. And I think as a company that commits to empowering every person in every organization on the planet, and as a Malaysian myself, sitting in Kuala Lumpur, working and covering this region, I see that one area that we can continue to work on is that platform of innovation. We have the talent pool, we have the capability, and going back to Dato Karim's point, having that confidence, and just be given that opportunity to go out and showcase our product, and how can we be more competitive? And I think we are in a very unique place today, in that the intersection of being in ASEAN but also serving the world. I think today we do not build for just the Malaysian market. The platform economy has given us an opportunity to reach the world on a click. And that is what we need to build for. We need to be ambitious in the way we take on innovation. You are not building for the Malaysian market. You are building for the world. And one area I think we can be differentiated and continue to build, especially in innovation and technology, is especially with cloud computing and with artificial intelligence in Internet of Things, is that how do we also serve the underserved, people with disability? I think those are people who have been left behind, and we have an opportunity not only to bring them on board, mainstream them into the economy, but also allow for them to participate. And I think today we have that opportunity with technology and innovation. I think those are areas that we can continue to progress. There are 1.6 billion, 1.3 billion disabled people. Building for them, you are building for the world. We need to go where other people are not willing to go. And I think that is where we can continue to build, and also looking at those opportunities as not something that I am restrained by border. Malaysians have always had this easy entry, easy exit model on business. We can set up, by the roadside. But today, as digital vendors, as digital entrepreneurs, we have that, we already come with that DNA in our culture. But moving that to online, moving that to the digital economy platform, I think that is where we need to see that opportunity, grasp that opportunity, whether that in the form of an employment or in the form of an entrepreneur. I think that is where we need to now have that mind shift, that we want to look at serving the world. We want to have that bold ambition of going out. That is my thought, Jasmine.
Thank you, Dr. Jasmine. Go where others are not. Very important. Chee, Siong, what will perspective be then, or advice to other organizations on forming collaborations to grow their activities in ASEAN?
Yeah, I have two viewpoints. To have a better collaboration that is different than our conventional thought. So the first one is I think among the organization or company, we need to learn together and explore together. Because in a conventional business world, people tend to compete each other. I want to be first. No, in this domain, I want to be in leading position. So a lot of time, the learning cycle are very keep into your self-organization. So, and then we invest a lot in getting all the external training, tutor, and so on. But I think in this new norm of the world, even the competitor between the competitors, we should learn each other. We have to learn together. So I think that is the new things, that new cultural or mindset that we need to have in our mind, because no, under this pandemic new norm, right, and never of us that we have experienced before. So I think we need to explore together under this new norms era. So that's the first thing, that we need to change ourselves. We have to learn from each other and explore each other. So the second point is that if you look at Malaysian markets, that the most hit sector is SME. So with that, close to 1 million of SMEs, I mean, they need help, and when they need help, they need solution. Yes, on one hand, government will give some incentive, but that incentive will be more like the first push for them to undergo some sort of digital transformation. But again, most of the SME are still very traditional. So they don't even know what cloud is about. E-commerce, yes, they can simply just put their product at the Lazada, for example. But it's, I think, more than that. So how can they really undergo a digital transformation? So they need a lot of help. And most of the time, it's not just a help of incentive that could push them to transform. It's about the solution. What solution are you available for Malaysian SME? So even from Huawei, we're trying to put, maybe we source for any good solution from China, any good solution from other part of the world, but it may not be fit to the Malaysian SME, and it may not be that affordable to the Malaysian SME. So that arises opportunity. We should be the Malaysian company to innovate that solution for the Malaysian SME. So we are talking about local SME for the SME. Instead, we have to look for solution elsewhere to Malaysian SME. So one great example that our side we keep on highlighting is one of our cloud client called Hexa. So Hexa is a traditional food producer. So they use the AI technology to transform, using the camera to sort out all the dry chili, good chili, bad chili. So using a simple camera cloud AI technologies in an affordable way, so they can transform their factory line. So when they start doing that, so then they create a subsidiary called Hexa IoT. So it's a team of 20 engineers. That team of 20 engineers, because they are former SME, so they know the pain point of Malaysian SME. So, and then with that new team, they start to innovate what kind of IoT and cloud solution will be suitable for Malaysian SME. Then until now, about 6 months later, instead of their, in addition to their own transformation of the factory, so within the 6 months, they have now having additional 6 projects that is solving the problem of another 6 SME. So I think that is a great example of a traditional food producer company transforming itself as an IT company and now providing local customer solution for the local SME. I think that is a great example of how current collaboration should be. We shouldn't just ask, public-private collaboration, but from government side, yes, incentive, policy. But again, what is the solution? We're still lacking of that small solution that is fit to the SME. And to answer that, it's not about a giant company like Huawei, Microsoft. So we need that small players, small local players that innovate by themselves, but they need some technology support. For example, from Huawei, we provide that cloud and AI technologies. So Microsoft could provide others part of the solution. So I think that is a small step of push from the technology company and from the government, but it is the local SME that need to innovate and innovate that solution, and that is very powerful. And when this local SME for SME, this ecosystem has been growing bigger and bigger, then we have one very sustainable digital economy ecosystem here in Malaysia. Instead of we have to export solution or knowledge from other part of the world. So I think that is the 2 points that we think we need to rethink the collaboration and on the cultural side, we have to learn together and explore together. And secondly, is about local SME for the SME. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Siong. Very interesting. Localizing R&D as well as innovation. That's a very interesting point, and that we see in many developed countries. Okay, I'm just going through the questions that's coming in from the audience. There's one question here addressed to Dato Karim. I'll just read the question. I'm impressed with your grand plan of Pengerang Eco-Industrial Park with the PIPC ultimate 1 million barrels per day capacity. I am sure you see bigger picture in the whole horizon of oil and gas sector, from ONG to ICT. Data is the new oil. Dato, are there things we did not envision yet?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you also for the person who forward the questions. I would say that, of course, it's a never-ending kind of efforts that need to be put in as an organizations, and of course, as an entity which is part of the global community. And yes, there are certain important areas which Serba Dinamik is looking into it. And then, of course, Malaysia as a country is also looking into it. If we look at what we have been talking about, all this internet and connectivity, the AI, frontier technology, and other things, these are, I would say, the solutions which has been designed by R&D and also proven to be a system that can be applied into the daily life of the respective parties. But all this kind of technology and so on will not be able to be put in place if there is no just an entity or an element or an item, what we call it as the satellite. Because satellite plays an important role in terms of bringing the informations to all the respective party. Satellite technology will also brings the internet connectivity to a wider coverage. If we look at the internet connectivity at the moment, using the onshore optic cables connectivity and so on, is very limited. It's very much connected to the urban area only. The suburban and also the rural areas could not have this kind of connectivity. So by means of the space technology via the launching of a satellite to cover all this underserved area is something that need to be looked into. So in another way, or in another words, what we are working on in Serba Dinamik at the moment is looking at the space technology. We have been talking to the government, and the government, being a very proactive approach, has also moved forward to roll out the necessary regulatory framework, so that when the technology and the investors comes in this particular area, there is already a regulations or an act which has already been approved, and just the technology can move into motion. So yes, I would say that space technology, if we look into it, is really something which is very interesting, is really something which is very important for Malaysia, and it is something which is very necessary to connect the disconnectivity within the entire change of the technology that we are talking about this morning. So I would say that it is an area, the space economy, the space technology is something which is very important to narrow down the gap so that Malaysia can position itself as a one-stop solutions to all this frontier technology that we are talking about. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dato Karim, for your insights just now. To all the panelists, Dato Karim, Dr. Jasmine, as well as Mr. Lim Chee Siong, it is humbly my honor to be sharing this platform with you here today. Thank you for your sharings on the topics of digital ASEAN, collaboration, and growth. I think one thing that we can all agree here is about optimism and opportunities as we look at the way forward, not just among MNCs, but among SMEs as well. No one gets left behind. And then that's an important factor there. And most importantly as well is as we continue to explore all these opportunities, as best as possible, apply technology with a balance of talent in skillings and so on, so that we can look at how we can move forward, position Kuala Lumpur, position Malaysia as that business hub for the region. With that, I thank you to the three panelists, Dato Karim, Dr. Jasmine, and Mr. Lim Chee Siong. At the first opportunity, I definitely would like to meet you personally, and we hope to see you again. And to the audience, thank you for coming in, and we wish everybody the best. Stay safe, and thank you, and have a good day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the moderator as well as the panelists for an energizing discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now be moving forward to our next session where we will have Yang Berhormat Dato' Saifuddin Abdullah, Minister of Communications and Multimedia, Malaysia, and Yang Amat Berhormat Tan Sri Dato' Haji Muhyiddin bin Haji Muhammad Yassin, Prime Minister of Malaysia. It will begin in 1 minute. Click Join Session.